Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carruth Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2013 comedy movie titled Bad Words. Now, Bad Words runs for 1 hour and 29 minutes long. It is directed by Jason Bateman, who is making his directorial debut for a movie. This is his actual movie directing debut. Alright, he also produced the movie along with Jeff Colota, Sean McKittrick, and Mason Novick. The script was written by Andrew Dodge. It was composed by Rolf Kent. The cinematography by Ken Singh. And it was edited by Tatiana S. Regal. And the stars of the movie are Jason Bateman, Katheryn Hahn, Rohan Chand, Ben Falcone, Philip Baker Hall, Allison Janney, Rachael Harris, Judith Hoag, Beth Grant, Patricia Belcher, Anjul Nigam, Michael Patrick McGill, Bob Stephenson, Steve Witting, Greg Cromer, Ethan Dizon, and Madison Hugh. Now, make no mistake about it. Bad Words is definitely saturated with politically incorrect humor. And you know what the best part about this movie is? They make no apologies about it. They don't care if they're running into danger territory from, social justice warriors who might threaten to cancel this movie because this movie is saturated with offensive humor, lots of swearing, even for a movie that only runs like slightly less under 90 minutes. There's a lot of misogyny, maybe even also a lot of racial themed humor that's depicted in this movie. But you know what? Do you know what the best part about this movie is? They don't give a fuck what you think. If you don't like the movie, simple thing. All you gotta do is pick up your remote control and turn the fucking machine off. Simple as that. Or if you like the movie, just sit down and shut the fuck up. Don't spoil it for others. Easy as that. Since this movie is Bad Words, I'm going to be throwing a lot of F-bombs and S-bombs. And if you don't like that, fuck me. The thing is that this movie makes no apologies about making it one of the more bolder and braver films I've seen in a long time. The humor will truly leave you laughing for hours on end. But that's what comedy is about. Comedy is about to make people feel unsettled or uncomfortable. If you don't have a sense of humor, just don't watch it. Maybe this movie wasn't for you. I can understand that this movie may not be for everyone. Especially to those who either have virgin ears or oversensitivity. Hey, I understand. It's not for everyone. But I, for one, actually going to say that I really, truly enjoyed this movie. Was it perfect? Far from it. There is a big major guffaw. There is a big red herring in this movie that kind of like prevents it from being a classic. Sure, the humor will truly leave you laughing for hours on end. The only problem with this movie is that it seems to be very, very one-dimensional in its intentions. It's going to provide you with laughter and humor the whole way through. But I think that's what its only mindset is. The big herring about Bad Words is that the dramatic intentions that are needed for this comedy to work needed just as much equal screening as the comedy. The drama, as sad to say, we don't really get enough of it. We don't get enough drama into this movie. It's basically just trying their best to be politically incorrect and using offensive humor, and really nothing more to it. It's not to say that the plot was narrow thin. No, there is a plot, there is a story, there is a climax. But for this movie to be really something special, we needed some dramatic intentions as well. And that's where this movie really truly lacks. Under the penmanship of Andrew Dodge, the dramatic intentions can draw some levels of sympathy to the leading character, whose pitiful soul goes through great lengths to overcome this heavy burden that has manifested in his soul since he was very young. But since we hardly delve into the dramatic themes of this movie, we don't see the full picture, as this movie seems to be only just played for laughs and nothing more. Very one-dimensional in its content, or its intentions. All we know is Jason Bateman stars as Guy Thrillby, a man who fairly seems to hate people and definitely shows no remorse about the way he thinks and the way he acts towards those who encounter him. Now, we actually ask, what is his function in this movie? Well, guess what? He's about to enter a spelling bee. Now, you heard me right. Jason Bateman, Guy Thrillby's character, is in a spelling bee. This was a spelling bee, especially with kids who did not get past the 8th grade. Now, I bet you're probably wondering, what is a 40-year-old man doing competing in a spelling bee with a bunch of 11-year-olds? Well, apparently he has found a snag in the education system that made him eligible to compete in the National Spelling Bee Championship, in spite of the fact that he's a middle-aged man. Oh, geez, he can enter a spelling bee, and he's a middle-aged man. I'm a middle-aged guy, too. Maybe I should enter a spelling contest. No, I won't. Anyhow, he has found a leak in the system. Apparently, the requirements to enter a spelling bee is you can't get past the 8th grade. Well, newsflash for you, Jason Bateman's character never finished the 8th grade. He's a high school dropout. Now, does that make him a stupid person? Far from it. Apparently, the guy's got a photogenic memory, and he can remember these kind of things. Also, he actually does have a job as a proofreader. So, Guy Thrillby is actually really a very, very intelligent man, even though he's never finished the 8th grade. But we often ask ourselves, why is it that this middle-aged guy is really competing in a spelling bee championship against a bunch of preteens? Apparently, is it because he's trying to prove himself that middle-aged people can be just as equally competitive as the younger counterparts? No. Is he doing it to win a championship? Not necessarily. Is he doing it for revenge? You're getting close. No. His intentions is much more darker, much more deeper, and much more complex than just winning a championship, getting revenge. No, he's about to stick it to someone and try to ruin this individual's reputation. You see, apparently, Jason Bateman's character, Guy Trilby's father, apparently abandoned him when he was small. And so the purpose of him entering this spelling bee competition is to get back at his father. Because, but the question we want to know is, who is his father? Who is his baby daddy? Well, as I continue through this rant, well, it's not a complete rant. There's a lot of positive things about this movie, but there's also a lot of negative that seems to be somewhat equally balanced with the positives. With strong support from a roving reporter by the name of Janney Widgeon, played by Katheryn Hahn, he feels confident that he's going to win against these kids for a myriad of reasons. Okay, now a lot of people are asking, where does Janney Widgeon fit in this movie? Well, obviously she's from my end of the cloth. She is a newspaper reporter. She is a newspaper journalist, just like I am. Well, okay, no, I just write a column. She actually goes out on the road. Anyhow, her mission is because she thinks that this whole idea of a 40-year-old competing in a national spelling bee champion with a bunch of 11-year-olds looks like something of the making of a great story. And she's just trying to, get into the dirt as to what the hell is going on. She is going to just go out there and she is going to get more backstory as to why this guy is competing, what's his modus operandi, and what is he trying to accomplish in this spelling bee that he's so particularly obsessed with. He feels confident that he's going to win against these kids for a myriad of reasons. Number one, because he knows how to manipulate these kids so that they could become distracted in their competition and lose. Just as a way so that he could bring himself up, spell whatever words they throw at him, guess it correctly, and then move forward. He's got tricks up his sleeves. He knows how to get the best of them. Some of them were pretty hilarious. Even though there are many reasons why I shouldn't like this guy, but for somehow Guy Trilby somehow still manages to find a bit of likeness in him. And this is kind of like stepping out of the typecast that Jason Bateman has put himself in over the years. Over the years, Jason Bateman has always played good, down-to-earth, nice guy type characters. But in this movie, he is playing a complete and total dick. And it's just so hilarious. Because he's breaking out a typecast, and he actually seems to do quite well. There's part of you that just wants to just punch him in the nose, but then there's also a bit of us that actually says, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe he's onto something. Maybe underneath all that rage, all that anger, all that misanthropy, he's probably a pretty down-to-earth individual. So you know what? We're not going to punch him in the nose. Wring his neck? Maybe not even that. But anyhow, we get this feeling. He kind of reminds me a bit like like Archie Bunker and All in the Family. I mean, Carroll O'Connor's character Archie Bunker, remember, he kind of comes across as being a pretty spiteful, hateful, bigoted misanthropist who we were supposed to conventionally not like because he uses a lot of suggestive, somewhat racial, misogynistic, homophobic things that come out of his mouth. But underneath that surface, there is that certain level of likability in him that makes him a complex, albeit endearing character. And you get that from Guy Thrilby as well. He'll say things, he'll mean it, but also at the same time, he does actually is not necessarily a heel, but he is also very, very, very complex in his in characteristic. It's not just some one-dimensional guy who just we're just programmed to hate, because we're not really programmed to hate the guy. There are a lot of hateful characters in this movie, and he's probably maybe one of the least hateful people in this movie. Of course, him and Janney, she seems like she's like with him the whole way through. But there's always this, it seems like she's practically almost there with him everywhere. Even when he checks into a hotel room as he moves to the next city for the next spelling bee. Of course, his hotel room is not a big fancy suite, no. His hotel room is actually a storage room with a cot. Just kind of strange, but then again, a lot of people just don't like the idea of seeing a 40-year-old guy entering a spelling bee contest. Alright. Another reason why he's confident to win is because not only he can manipulate these kids, which I'm going to sort of discuss a bit, with the things he does during the spelling bee. He's also been on this planet a lot longer than them, even though he dropped out of the 8th grade. He seems to have a photographic memory, which means that he's not stupid at all. He practically can spell almost anything. He is a prodigy in that sense. And he also befriends a Hindi kid who goes by the name of Chaitanya, played by Rohan Chand. And, they sort of have kind of a bond with each other. Very similar to like the Truman or Thurman Merman character from Bad Santa with Billy Bob Thornton. Yeah, you see that kind of connection. He's like a little kid teaming up with a major league asshole, but they seem to. But unlike Thurman and Billy Bob's character in Bad Santa, where there's not a lot of deep chemistry, Billy Bob practically just tramples over that kid. In this movie, the Hindu kid is actually a really, really good actor. First of all, he's not playing, like these whole Dakota Fanning, Abigail Breslin types, like 20-year-olds trapped in 8-year-old kid's body. No. He's a kid. He still acts like a kid, but he's also, very smart beyond his years, but he doesn't try to pretend to be like a 20-year-old trapped in a 10-year-old kid's body. No, he's not like that at all. I mean, they have a certain bond with each other, and there's a lot of good chemistry between Guy and Chaitanya, and they really work things out. I mean, in some ways, Guy Thrillby's character is kind of almost like the closest to a father figure to this young Hindu kid. And, you know, he kind of teaches him things, teaches him how to be a bit vulgar, teaches him how to somewhat break the rules, and even at times to be teaching him maybe the art of, like chilling back a bit. Obviously, this kid doesn't have very many friends, if he actually even has friends at all. So, Guy is almost like a reluctant friend and somewhat father figure to him. Some people might think that's kind of a little bit creepy to see a grown man befriending a 10-year-old. And of course, there's this misconceptions, like the whole thing with a middle-aged adult and a kid being friends together. People will sometimes misinterpret him for being kind of pedo. You know what I mean? But I don't really see it to that extent. He doesn't go to that extent, but there will be a lot of like misconceptions there. But we will not go really delving into it. Of course, let's talk a little bit about the tricks that Guy actually has up his sleeves. In one of the championship finals, there's uh, Guy prior to the day before their spelling bee. I think it's something like a quarterfinals or something like that, or a semifinals. Yeah, semifinals. He and Janney eventually make out in the storage closet. And she was kept constantly saying, "Don't look at me, don't look at me," while they were making out, which is definitely truly played for laughs. Oh, and he also still had her underwear, which actually does come into effect in the spelling bee, because he actually played a trick on some Asian kid who looked like he was going to be a surefire contender for the next round. So while he was so prior to him getting ready to spell out his next word, he whispers to the kid's ear like, "Oh, before you go up, I want you to return these panties back to your mother, because behind closed doors, you and your mother and I we were doing it." So then, of course, this kid goes off guard, and he eventually misspells a word, so he was eliminated. And then he returns to his seat, disgusted and angered by his mother. Yeah, he has a few other tricks up his sleeve. Another trick up his sleeve was let's see, he and Chaitanya went to some fast food restaurant to eat, and he also had some ketchup packs with him, which he had stored in his pocket. Now, a lot of people are wondering, why was he having ketchup packs in his pocket? Well, apparently, another night during the three quarterfinals or the quarterfinals, yeah, um, he took what another contestant, which was a young lady. He He put some ketchup on her chair, and he told her, "Congratulations, you have just entered womanhood." So then when she sat down on the chair, she had ketchup stains on her bottom. She thought it was blood. So, now this is kind of a little gross and a little sickening, but he said to her something like, "Congratulations, you have now entered womanhood." In other words, she was made to believe that she got her first period. I know what you're thinking. That's sick. That's grotesque. That's disgusting. She refused to get up from her chair because she thought she was having her period, and apparently she got herself disqualified. He used all kinds of rather sickening exploitive tricks in the book just so that he could advance to the finals. But, aside from him trying to bring people down, well, he also has many people who want to bring him down too. Not just angry parents going out on angry mobs chasing after him because they think it's unfair that a 40-year-old is trying to erase the dreams of a possible future for these young intellectuals who believe that winning a spelling bee could give them that upper edge for potential scholarships, while this guy is just trying to bring them down in any way, shape, or form. But there are also committee members too who also don't take kindly to this guy. I can't say to this guy because the main character's name is God. To this guy's manipulative schemes and the idea of a 40-year-old guy trying to win a spelling bee championship. Okay, so under the leadership of Dr. Deegan, played by Allison Janney, and the CEO and the chairman of this board, Dr. Bowman, played by Philip Baker Hall, they're going to go through great lengths to manipulate him into making him lose the spelling bee. But Guy simply is not going to go down that easily. So Dr. Deegan says that, okay, I'm going to give him a very, very difficult word. And if he guesses correctly, then I will resign from my position. Well, guess what? Guy spelled out the word, and guess what? He was correct. So I guess Dr. Deegan had to go by her end of the promise and was forced to resign. As for Dr. Bowman, who also served as the announcer and the chairman of the spelling committee, well, we all know that he's going to try everything in under his books to bring Guy down, but Guy will simply refuse to go down. Like I said, during the spelling bee, he forms a partnership from a spelling bee prodigy rival named Chaitanya Chopra, played by Rohan Chan, whose companionship is concealed with unflattering results. Now, like I said, just because they're buddies does not necessarily mean that he has choice words to say about his little pal. I mean, there are times when he uses racial descriptions about him, like when they're on an airplane and he says, "If you don't be quiet soon, I'm going to tell the pilot that your bag is ticking." Yeah, they're going to Of course, that's of course a reference to 9/11 and, you know, making believe that he's some kind of Muslim terrorist with a ticking bag. He also sometimes nicknames him Slumdog, making it as kind of like a reference to the 2010 movie Slumdog Millionaire. So, hey, yeah. And sometimes I often ask myself, and I wonder to myself, why does this kid want to continue his friendship with a guy who's obviously a bigot, who has no remorse or no sympathy for the things he says? But as time goes on, they actually do bond. They still bond with each other. They still, exchange each other's words of wisdom, and they have a good dynamic chemistry. And then, but the thing is that the reason why Chaitanya is friends with him is because the old saying goes, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Even though he doesn't regard him completely as an enemy, but his father knows that that guy is his rival. Even though Guy clearly wants Titania and them to be friends, but unfortunately he realizes that this was all just a ruse, just for him to humor him. So as an act of revenge, Guy takes Chaitanya's only companion, a binder full of difficult words, whom which he calls Todd. Well, eventually he takes Todd and he burns the binder, who he refers to as Todd. He destroyed Todd. So then came the finals, and it came down to Guy and Chaitanya, and they just eventually turned this whole spelling bee into a two-ring circus, as they kept each deliberately trying to take each other down, both physically. Yes, there's chair shots, and there's also kicks in the nuts as well, while also at the same time they're both each deliberately trying to make mistakes so that one of the two will win. Apparently, in the end, Chaitanya does win and receives something like $25,000. But because Guy did it for him, because he still regarded him as a friend, Chaitanya decides, let's just call it even and split the cash. And then the next day we come to school, and it appears that Guy had bought himself a police car. Chaitanya was, of course, being bullied around by school kids. And then it ends with Guy in his police car chasing around the bullies with Chaitanya in the seat. So, it ends kind of on a happy ending. Oh, and by the way, it actually does reveal that Dr. Bowman is the actual father to Guy Thrillby. So, like I said, the real intentions wasn't about winning the spelling bee, but to actually rub in his face. So that's kind of like what this story is about. It was about getting even with Dad. type of thing. Now, though he had some experience in directing, dating back in the 1980s, when he directed several television episodes of the Hogan family during his teenage years, this is actually Jason Bateman's movie directing debut, and his years of experience comes to life in delivering a punchline at the right time. In spite of these shortcomings, Bad Words has some genuine moments that will make you break down in laughter. The most funniest moments occurred during the coverage of the Spelling Bee finals, like the stuff that I had mentioned before. The other memorable scene was when Guy was eating lunch with Chaitanya and a lady undefined him. He really rips her to shreds in an over-the-top but somewhat clever manner. Like I said, the big weakness to Bad Words are the thinly used subplots that never fully develop and seem to be forgotten as the film progresses. I like to think that the film had the intention to be much longer than what it was expected to be. It was rendered to be bogged down to a 90-minute film when it could have been better if it was an hour and 45 minutes long. The awkward friendship between Guy and Chaitanya, although good chemistry between the two, it basically depends on cliche rather than playing out as a solid cohesive unit. The romantic angles of Guy and Janney feel forced and used as an arc to keep the narrative flowing. The performances by Janney and Baker Hall as the corrupt committee members of the Spelling Bee was put there simply as an excuse because our leading performer needs some kind of foil type antagonists, and they were pretty much just put on as plot devices to have villains added to the story, and they were both pretty one-dimensional. But the most interesting thing about Bad Words is that we have a genuinely hateful character like Guy, and yet there's still part of us that makes us feel sorry for him to the point where we still like him in a similar vein to Billy Bob Thornton in Bad Santa. A hateful guy, we're supposed to hate this guy, but somehow we still kind of find some reasons to actually like him. In other stories, Guy has the makings of a villain. I mean, he plays dirty pool and doesn't really give a shit what you think. I mean, he manipulates and abuses young kids more than the school bully. Not exactly a nice guy, one should say. But because of Bateman's level of likability, and knowing this film shows no remorse in delivering vulgarity in the script, we can invest in Guy's character in spite of his cunning nature and his disdain for humanity. Sure, today's sensitive audience may not appreciate this kind of humor with profanity, misogyny, and even racism in its delivery, but we can all agree that there are laugh out loud moments throughout the film, even if it is guilty pleasure laden. The film definitely lacks in dramatic moments that were looked upon very limited, which were badly needed for this film to be better. See, that's what kind of where this movie lacks in. Is that it's too much comedy, but not enough drama. We needed some more development in the arc of the story. A little more character development could have really been needed, and maybe some more better solid explanation. Even though I think it probably might be good that Jason Bateman decided not to give too much away from the beginning and to just let things smooth on until we get into the climax as to what really is motivating him to enter a spelling bee for 11-year-olds. And I think he did pull that off very well. But I just wish there was some more inner drama that could have been used for a movie of this caliber. So when all is said and done, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would definitely give Bad Words. I might be a bit cheap on this one, but I have to give this one a 6. A lot could have been done to make this movie better, but it didn't. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules. Be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric, your writer, saying keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.